Right, this is the enlarger which is used for the exposure of the master copies. Here we can see the densitometer with one of the selected negatives. It's used for examining the negative, measuring density and brighter light zones. Here we're looking at the selected negatives, more measures of the negative being taken here. Now we move on to what we call l'épouillage. That's literally the delousing. In other words, getting rid of the crumbs or the loose particles. So that means soaking the master negative in water, heated to around 60 degrees centigrade, which helps to get rid of all the residual gelatine. This takes about 3 minutes. We change the water each time so that it's really clean and there aren't any gelatine particles left. And at the same time, we use gloves to trim the edges of the master to make sure that no gelatine particles contaminate the colouring whilst it's being immersed in the dye. Now, here's the final stage, which we call rolling. Each master negative is immersed in its original dye. In other words, the complementary colours, cyan, magenta and yellow. Practically the same as the dyes used by the printers. We don't have a black dye because with 3 prints in trichrome, you can obtain all the colours of the spectrum. Now, I've just put the dye paper in place on the granite slab. It's been conditioned in a bath. I'm now taking the first master, the one in magenta. I'm shaking the drops off and I'm setting my watch, and then the master goes into a bath to be rinsed. After that we put it into another bath which we call the waiting bath. Here the paper is being lined up on the granite. It's rolled and then wrung out. I take the magenta master out of the acid bath where it's been waiting, and I'm going to line it up on the granite, which has pins for locating. And I'm going to place the master, which is now soaked in the dye, using the roller straight onto the dye paper. So this is the moment when the transfer of the magenta dye begins. Notice I carefully smooth the master to get rid of any air bubbles that might occur. Meanwhile, I continue with my second master negative, which is soaking in cyan. So, whilst the magenta master is being transferred onto the paper, I get ready to rinse the second master. Here we go. Rinse it for 1 minute. There you have 1% slightly acidic water. Draining the waiting bath, that's 2% acidic water. Now I'm going to remove the first master negative. The transfer is complete. You can see the magenta appearing separately from the master. I'm putting the master back into hot water to rinse it, and then it can be reused as often as required. Right. I'm now going to position the cyan master negative. No, it's not exactly the same operation. In fact, we have to go backwards a few steps. Here we are. Now I'm lining up the cyan master negative, and I'm going to place it on the paper, which has already received the magenta dye. You see, the cyan transfer is now being added to the magenta, and the two colours combine to give us what we call blue, through a combination of colours. Here's another little job we have to do, making sodium acetate. So I'm weighing the sodium acetate, which is a density reducer used for rinsing during transfer operations. Now, here comes the last master negative. It's yellow, and of course, it's the complementary colour of blue, which is going to make up the final picture. I'm removing the cyan master. I make sure the transfer has worked properly. I'm going to put it into the hot water as well. And there, I've just put the yellow master in place. So we might say that the complete picture has now been transferred onto the paper. This is what we do after the transfer is complete. I put all my negatives into a dryer. Here I'm giving them a good rinse in hot water. The dye print is complete. We've got the yellow onto the paper, and I line up the paper once again for some extra little finishing touches. I'm re-rolling the paper. This little job consists of removing magenta in places. If the magenta shows through a bit too much in certain colours, certain grey areas especially, we get rid of it. And from time to time, we can do a little bit of painting, adding a spot of colour here and there if it's needed. Now this is the drying process. In fact, it's pre-drying because we eliminate about 80% of the humidity from the paper. Then we hang it on the wall to let it dry out by itself. This also avoids weakening the gelatine on the paper. So there you can see a first print on the end wall, and this one is the second print which has undergone a few changes by using chemicals.